fellow administrative professionals. Welcome to the Admin Spotlight Behind the Front Desk. I am your host, Molly Denham, and I cannot wait to jump into our podcast today. We have a special episode for you, and it is part of a series that we are running throughout the month of April. In celebration of Administrative Professionals Month, we are turning the tables and speaking with industry executives to get their perspective on the admin field. We will be talking with executives across multiple industries about the value we can provide to an organization and the challenges facing our career field as the business world changes and more fully begins to embrace AI and advanced technologies. Our guest today is André Pienaar, and I am so happy to have him with us today to share his thoughts. André is the CEO and founder of C5 Capital, and C5 is a venture capital and private equity firm specializing in investments within the cybersecurity, cloud infrastructure, and clean energy sectors. The firm focuses on supporting companies that address critical global challenges, particularly in the areas of national security, data protection, and environment sustainability. They host offices in Washington, D.C., London, Vienna, and Luxembourg. And in full disclosure, they are a client of mine, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to work with C5 for about a year and a half now, and it is a pleasure to be part of their team. And André, welcome to the Admin Spotlight.
Molly, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for everything that you've done for C5 and continue to do.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you being with us on this special episode. So we dedicate our time on this podcast to the admin community and largely focus on forging a strong network amongst ourselves. However, every now and again, we have to shake it up a bit, and that's exactly why I'm excited about today's discussion. So, administrative professionals spend a lot of time talking about how we support organizations and leaders, but we don't always hear directly from your end as the executive in dealing with your experience and how the support truly impacts you and your organization. So today we're exploring the administrative profession through your executive lens, your experience in working with our wonderful professionals, where you see the greatest value and what the future might look like as our work environment continues to evolve. So I imagine over the course of your career, I'm sure you've worked with wonderful administrative professionals in different environments, in different countries, and at different stages of company growth. When you think about the best administrative professionals you've worked with, what really stands out to you? What separates a good admin from the truly exceptional one?
Well, I think the job description of an administrative assistant or an administrator is really a misnomer in many ways, because the role really is all about executive enablement and about executive relations. And I think that really describes the role much more accurately, because this is really what the profession does. It enables executives to do more. And of course, the most finite resource that an executive has is his or her time. And so to make the most of that time and to make sure that the time gets allocated to the most impactful work streams and activities and relationships. And then secondly, the most valuable thing that, other than time, that an executive have are his or her relationships. And the best executive assistants really help an executive to maintain those relationships, to build those relationships, to strengthen relationships, to make those relationships more resilient, and sometimes to remediate the relationship. And in an extreme case, to end the relationship. But those two things, executive enablement and executive relations, really for me is at the core of the role and describes the role more completely. And I think that's what the best people in the profession do. And you really, I don't have full visibility on what the compensation structure is in the industry today, but you really can't put a value on those two things: the executive enablement, maximizing your time, making your time impactful, being a guardian and a protector of your time, and secondly, the relationship piece. that there's an immeasurable value to those two activities.
Mhm. I completely get it. And that really resonates because one of the themes that we often discuss within the admin community is that the role has the potential to go beyond individual tasks and beyond just the tactical, right? So my view is that the future of our field will be less operationally task oriented, such as, calendar management, meeting minutes, travel planning, and more decision-making support and enabling leadership to operate at their highest level by providing what the Air Force anyways called information management and not so much administration. So from your perspective, how does a strong administrative professional change the way that you operate day to day, and what impact does that trusted relationship that can really happen, which is that sweet spot between the executive and the assistant? How can that change the effectiveness of your leadership?
Oh, I think in so many ways, and you and Vectra helped C5 in so many ways to do this. I think you said something that really resonates with me, which is about helping the executive to perform at an optimum level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One component of that is to take the friction out of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I can't. I think was it Clausewitz or Napoleon who said a plan only survives until it makes contact with a battlefield. Um, but I think that applies also to most executive schedules, particularly if you do, as we do, business globally, where circumstances can change so quickly. And in recent years, we have seen um, geopolitical risk also impacting our work. So, I've been in places like Tel Aviv where there's been incoming missiles. I couldn't take a call or a meeting, and you had to help me reschedule that, Molly. I've been en route to countries, and then a war have broken out, and I couldn't travel, and we had to change plans. So I think to take the friction out of the day and to give that sense of calm and to organize the chaos, I think
Mm-hmm.
that is incredibly valuable. And then secondly, I think improving communications. Again, we in our business we have to communicate over different time zones. We have to communicate with our investors, who are our clients. We have to investigate with the companies that we are invested in. We have to communicate with our partners because we invest in highly regulated industries. We have to communicate with governments. So there's a whole raft of stakeholders that we need to communicate with, and to have that alignment between the executive and the executive assistant about the tone and the professionalism of communication and some measure of cultural understanding and context is incredibly valuable. Um, and particularly where there's something that might have gone wrong, where there's a problem, or where there's something unexpected, having that trust and confidence that's been built up over time because of communication and professionalism, I think helps enormously.
I completely agree. And one of the things that, funny enough, I tell our team at C5 all the time when they talk about your schedule and how busy you are and how likely it is you're going to be able to either attend a meeting or get to where you're supposed to go. I tell them, I say, look, the schedule that we put out is a guide. That's our starting point. That it's not an end point. That's a starting point, and we do our best to keep on track. But again, like you said, it's just constantly communicating with the other individual on the line to make sure that if you're running late, or if something, like you said, when the planes don't go where they're supposed to go, and making sure that everybody knows what's happening. I feel like my role is to be that extension of you when you are not
Perfect.
able to do so.
You're a wonderful ambassador for our firm and organization, and you make the first impression, Molly. You have the first conversation with someone's office or with another executive, and you make the first impression. And then when people meet me, they're somewhat disappointed, but Uh, no, you make a fantastic first impression, and first impressions really, really count. And you're a wonderful ambassador for us. And I think that that first impression is something really valuable that an executive assistant also do for his or her organization and the person she works with closely, and because that alignment of standards and tone and culture and values is so important to be able to build relationships. And look, we live in a world, in a business world, where relationships are under stress and under strain.
Mhm.
The level of uncertainty that we have places strain on relations. Um, in the US, we have very high litigation risk. We've in the US, we've come to accept litigation as a form of doing business. That puts relationships under strain. Then we have all this geopolitical uncertainty with multiple wars going. That definitely puts all kinds of strain on relationships. And so at this particular point in time, when there's so much noise and so much uncertainty, and people have very high risk perceptions, being able to maintain steady relations, clear communications, to be responsive is enormously valuable. And one of the things I'm very grateful for, Molly, is it's not only your work ethic, but also how you are willing to work across time zones. Because in a typical day, I would work, some days I would start my day in Japan,
Mhm.
no matter where I am, and then I would go on to the Middle East, and then Europe, and then the US. And so that's a long day, and a lot of things happen, but you help me get through that multifaceted day. Um, and so that's incredibly valuable for us.
Thank you. I really appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad you highlighted that, because one of the things that I tell young administrative professionals is, like you said, they are often the very first person that somebody sees, or somebody talks to, whether it's through email or on the phone. I don't personally see anybody, but you're kind of that introduction to the company. And
That's
so the ability to maintain calm, because not everything's going to go as planned, the ability to go back and forth when you're trying to find a meeting date, or trying to set up travel, and being respectful, and understanding that other culture, because like you said, you are a global travel. So when I talk to someone from Japan, it's much different than the individual that I'm talking to maybe in California or Texas, or it's different from the individual that I'm talking to from Bahrain. You have to kind of be culturally aware. So I'm glad you highlighted that, because sometimes I feel like I'm the only one saying it.
no, it's really that's really really important. And um, one of my favorite films is 9 to 5,
Mhm.
with Dolly Parton. But the job is no longer 9 to 5. In
Mhm.
those days, when that movie was made, maybe it was a 9 to 5 job, and then folks did some overtime. But now, today, it's really a 24/7 job.
Mhm.
And I know that puts a lot of strain on executive assistants and their families, and it requires executive assistants often to make sacrifices. Um, but if if you're in a global business and you're in a senior leadership role, that's probably the reality of the job.
Par for the
Um,
course.
and and your willingness to do that and your ability to handle that is enormously valuable for organization. And one of the reasons why I think that we should change the name of the profession from administration to executive enablement or executive relations is because there's so much less administration involved in the
Hmm.
role. If going back to the movie 9 to 5 again, I think there was a lot of filing that had to be done in those days, where you had
Yes.
physical documents, you had to go and file them, and take care of documents. All that stuff has gone away. Everything is now digital, and then of course we now have AI.
Mhm.
And I would encourage everyone who's in the profession to familiarize themselves with AI platforms.
Mhm.
If your company or your business that you're part of or affiliated with has an AI adoption program, be one of the first to be part of that AI adoption program and learn as much as you can. There are so many free AI courses now at all kinds of levels, right up to university level. Enroll yourself in an AI course so that you can use the AI tools and platforms like ChatGPT and Anthropic and Google Gemini and Microsoft Copilot to do your work faster and better,
Mhm.
because that will enhance your productivity, but it will also make you more relevant because you're likely to know more about the AI than the person you're supporting, because uh, old guys like me in particular are slow to learn new things. And then and then and then thirdly, it will place you ahead of the curve. I don't foresee any scenario where AI will replace executive assistants,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the human dimension that makes executive assistants so valuable. Whether it's, whether it is related to a relationship, or whether it's related to enabling an executive to do something and accomplish something because of the managing of an itinerary, um, or just seeing something that you can address and move forward, um, or just giving the executive who's traveling that sense of human contact on a business journey, which is, don't underestimate the value of that. Just having a friendly voice on the telephone when you're in some strange country and your flight has been canceled, that does a great deal for morale. Um, but I think the key thing is accept that AI is now here. Companies, organizations are going to adopt it and get really smart about it. It's not that difficult. You don't have to be a programmer or a coder to master AI.
Not
It's really
anymore.
about all the AI platforms. It's about how do you ask questions and how do you get the best result by giving prompts and questions, and how do you become really smart in using AI applications.
Mhm. I completely agree with you, and I'm going to date myself a little bit. So when I first started, I've been doing admin work for a little over 30 years. And when I first started, I had a typewriter on my desk. I had, like you said, the big metal file cabinet behind me.
Yes,
Uh, I remember when we had a computer in a computer room that
yes, the
everybody
computer room.
used, right? And then, and then we kind of evolved. The administrative field went through an evolution during that time where we moved to computers, we moved to email. Again, I will date myself and said, I remember when email first started. I remember when the internet first came about, and our role evolved. And so I think that the admin profession, anyways, is going through another evolution just
Evolution,
like
yeah.
that. And I think where we faltered before was we as a career field did not guide our path into the new business environment.
Yeah.
And I think that today's admin professional is much more savvy, and we're starting to chart our own path and showing how we add value to an organization in today's AI and more tech savvy. So from your vantage point, with AI and automation changing the business environment, what do you see as the value that an administrative professional can bring that changes slightly from what maybe traditionally we have done?
Well, one of the things that depending on which AI platform your organization uses, but one of the things which is always incredibly valuable for me is meeting preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So today you could just put in somebody's name or organization's name into an AI platform and ask for a certain type of report. You can tailor the report to the agenda of your meeting, or you can make a general background report or a general reputational report. But you can have that almost instantly and quite comprehensively. So I think meeting preparation, the same with itineraries. I think you can also leverage AI platforms to give you a lot of information about someone's itinerary, um, from the weather onwards to political risk to recent news events to how travel is going. And then there may be subjects that that an executive is working on a particular topic, or a market or a counterpart or a technology or a transaction, and you can just play with that on AI and see what kind of interesting information you can get, either just to make yourself smarter or to apply and share, to make your principles smarter. And then I think the other area, of course, is organization. AI can really organize things, and that's worth playing and trying out with. Most admin tasks can now be automated if you are burdened with admin tasks like corporate expenses or things that you got to file or report on a regular basis. You can probably apply AI to that too, and save you a ton of time. So those are just some ideas, but we're in a great phase of discovery, and the key thing is that when you use AI, is to do it within the framework that your organization have created for the use of AI, and that framework will also include some confidentiality provisions and guardrails. So I think the key thing is to find out in C5. We've started with Microsoft Copilot as our first approved AI platform that we're using. So just play with it.
Yeah, and so I love using AI, and I'm very excited about it. I use it a lot. I use it for my other businesses. I use it for the stuff that I do for C5. And when we look into the future, 3 to 5 years from now, the business community is going to be it's going to be different. I believe AI is in its infancy, and we really haven't tapped into the potential of what it could do. But do you think that with technology and AI and everything else, will the executive of the future, will you require more leadership and operational involvement from the administrative assistant? Because I believe we're really going to go away from the task oriented. Like you said, there's AI that does your calendar for you. There's calendar management out there. There's travel management out there. There's expense management. So my thought is that the admins of the future will need to be more leadership and operational focused. Is that what you're looking for, perhaps in
Yes.
an
Yeah.
assistant?
I think the top executive assistants, firstly, what you will be looking for is their judgment and their discernment.
Mhm.
And judgment and discernment about issues related to values, but also related to counterparts, because we will be increasingly dealing with both human and non-human counterparts, and you will have to be really smart about establishing whether someone is a human or a non-human counterpart, and then how you interact and engage with them. To give you an example, I recently met with an AI agent company. It's a company that build AI agents, and their biggest customers are dental practices in the US. And their number one product is an AI agent who is a dental receptionist. And so they had me call several of their receptionists that have been placed at different dental practices to demonstrate the quality. And it was hard for me to tell whether I was talking to an AI agent or a human, because
It's
all the receptionists I spoke to were really smart. Their tones sounded completely normal and human. They were empathetic. They had a lot of empathy. In some cases, more empathy than my dentist's receptionist would have had with me. So I think that discernment about, in the future, judgment and discernment will be really important, and it will be about situations, about values, about counterparts, and whether they are human or non-human. And then I think the relationship building part will grow in importance, because the one thing that an AI agent can't do, an AI agent can interact with you, but an AI agent cannot build a human relationship. And I think the most valuable thing in business will remain to be real and authentic human relationships of trust. And so I think that executive ability to build those relationships and to maintain trust will be incredibly valuable. And then, and then I think that ambassadorial role, that first impression, um, that first human contact, I think that will also grow in importance. And I think the best executive assistants are part of the leadership team, as you are in C5. You're an integral part of my leadership team. You take, leaders create the future. You take initiative. You get things done. You sometimes spot something that we can do better, or where we've dropped as a leadership team, we've dropped a ball, and you help us identify that. And I think all of those things will remain invaluable for the future.
I'm glad to hear that. Although I'm a little worried because I have to show videos to my 11-year-old and say, "Hey, is this AI or is this real?" And
No, but
she
that's
just looks
great.
at me. She goes, "Mom, it's
But she
AI." I'm
knows.
like, "Dang it."
But she knows.
She
So,
knows. I don't know
so
how she knows, but she does.
yeah. But she knows, and see, in the future, if she decides to become an executive assistant, she'll be able to say, no, no, that was a fake one.
Yeah, because it fakes me out sometimes, but we'll see.
No,
It's all about learning.
it's all about learning. But I think that discernment, that ability to practice judgment and discernment, really will be a differentiator for top level executive assistants.
Nice. So we're going to change just a little bit. So the podcast is primarily, like I said, for admin professionals who are deeply invested in their careers and they're always thinking about how to grow. So I'd love to ask you, if you were to give advice to an administrative professional, what would you encourage people in this field to focus on in order to remain valuable and relevant in the future workplace?
I think you've got to understand the business you're part of. I think you've got to have curiosity. I think curiosity is really, really important. And you've got to be curious about the business that you are part of. How does it work? What's the business model? How do they make money? And
Hmm.
how can you enable them to make more money? Because ultimately businesses are about profit. So I
Hmm.
think being curious and particularly being curious um, about the business model and the business that you're part of is really important. And I think equally that curiosity applies to being curious about people and relationships and situations, because it's really in an international business, it's really about the nuance and the context and the color and the background of a relationship that
Hmm.
that that enables you to create value from it. And so to understand who's who and to be able to map a kind of a network around your principal, so you understand who's the most important people to him or her.
Yes.
I think that's something that you really should apply your mind to, and being able to join the dots. I think
Hmm.
that's really valuable and important. And we've already talked about the importance about learning about AI and being smart
Hmm.
about AI.
Yes.
Um, and then I think um, situational awareness and risk awareness has grown in importance. We've
Hmm.
now had a number of incidents where people have, where we've had shooters at work.
Mm.
Um, we've had terrorist incidents. We've had in many countries, in Tel Aviv, for example, the executive assistants are used to evacuating rooms when there's incoming drones or missiles. That's now the same across all of the Gulf. Many US companies, British companies, European companies have offices there, and the executive assistants in recent weeks had to deal with
Mm.
evacuations. So having a situational awareness of what's happening around you and your team and the business that's outward looking, um, I think is equally important. And then keeping a cool head. Um, and
Mhm.
people are only really able to keep a cool head in difficult circumstances if they are centered, which means you've got to have time for yourself. You've got to have time to connect with people who love you. You've got to make sure that you have an opportunity to recharge in the midst of your work.
Mhm. I love that you highlighted that because again, one of the things that I tell other admins is when you go into a new business or a new job, the very first thing that you should start doing is follow the people that your principal follow on social media. Apply to all of the newsletters for whatever the company focuses on, and immerse yourself so that you can understand the terminology, so you can understand, like you said, how to connect the dots. I think that's something that a lot of people don't think of, but in the
That's such good
administrative
advice.
field, it's very important.
No, that's such good advice. Follow your principal on social media because you will
Yes.
see you will see what's important to him or her, what they get
Mhm,
up to, who they connected to, how, what are the things they like, what are the things they post, and you'll
mhm.
get a sense of who the person is. And that's really great advice.
Yeah, it because again, I feel we are extensions of you. I can't be an
Yeah.
extension of you if I don't know what your goals are, if I don't know your perspective, if I don't know, how you think. So, just it's crawling into your brain. I'm going to tell you, I've been up in there, and there's a lot
It's a
going on.
scary place. No, that's so true. No, understanding what keeps your principal awake at night. I think
Hmm.
that's a really valuable skill. If you can understand where are the pain points, where are the problems, but also what are the things that gets them excited.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. And I can't believe that our time flew by, but it always does on this podcast. And so my blinker is blinking saying that we're coming up on our 30 minutes. But before we wrap up, each one of my episodes, I usually ask for final thoughts from our guests. And so today I would like to know if there was one thing that you wish more administrative professionals understood about executive operations, how you think, how to be a better strategic partner. What would that be? What would be your final thought for us admin professionals?
Um, I think principals who work with executive assistants often don't say thank you enough, um, and don't express appreciation enough. And sometimes that's because they are so preoccupied with other things, and they just do not get an opportunity, or they don't have the energy to do it. But just be assured that we appreciate what executive assistants do enormously. It is an essential part of business leadership today. It's an absolutely critical role, and it is a high value, high impact role. And don't underestimate the impact that you can make and the role that you can play and the amount of value that you can create for your organization. And Molly, a huge big thank you from me, not only for being on the podcast, but as I said at the beginning, for everything you do for me and C5.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. This has been such an insightful conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing your perspective to our community. Hearing directly from executives like yourself is very valuable to us. And so I appreciate you being on today for this thing. Thank you so much. And thank you for being just such a great executive to work with.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you to everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. And thank you to my fellow admin professionals for tuning into the Admin Spotlight Behind the Front Desk. Please continue to join us throughout Admin Professionals Month, as each week we will highlight a different executive and pick their brains a bit about the value of our profession and our future challenges. We will see you again soon.